Naruto, killing system turns Hidan into legend. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 61, Avatar. Seeing that the big knife that was no longer cut was about to break, Ching immediately used the substitute technique, and it was obviously impossible to dodge at such a close distance, and the substitute technique was his best choice. Wow. In the end, the red-white thunder light penetrated the decapitation knife, and also penetrated Ching's double. Boom. After a burst of white smoke, the stand-in turned into several sections of dead wood, burned into residue by thunder, and Ching's figure appeared on the water not far away, with a trace of cold sweat on his forehead. If he didn't react quickly, I'm afraid that his current fate would be like that section of dead wood. Damn it. The blue face stared ugly at the red-white thunder light that had not yet dissipated, and looked at its source, where the flying segment was. At this moment, Chingy has understood that he obviously can't leave, and if he wants to escape in front of the falcon, the chance of such a small is almost non-existent, and it is very likely to become the target of the falcon. Ching looked at the white and white again, and said with a solemn face, "Prepare to fight to the death, the other party is very strong, and has even reached the level of Hokage." No matter how sudden he was, he didn't expect that the person who came would make Ching become like this, but judging from the fact that his big knife was cut off by his thousands of miles away, he was indeed strong and terrifying. Boom boom boom. Xiaonan walked on the road with a flying section on his back and made a rhythmic sound, but in Ching's opinion, it was like a prelude to the arrival of the god of death, and every step was stepping on their hearts. "You're finally willing to come out." Kakashi looked at Hidan jealously. This guy's appearance was always so smelly. He had to lie on Xiaonan's back, making it seem like he didn't have long feet. Even now, many rumors outside say that Konoha's black and white Shinigami is a half-paralyzed guy, otherwise why is it lying on his maid every time he appears? "Oh, I originally wanted to watch the play well in the back, but someone broke the rules of the game, and I can only come out, otherwise Kakashi, you can't be blinded." Fei Duan came up and scolded Kakashi, making him jump to his feet in anger, but unable to refute it. After all, people under the eaves have to bow their heads. Whip. Ching gritted his teeth and shouted, then his expression gradually calmed down, and then he said calmly, "Let us go. From now on, the Wuing village will no longer trouble them, and will no longer write the idea of chakra." "Oh?" Fei Duan looked at Ching with interest, not understanding where he came from with confidence, and dared to negotiate conditions with himself. "If I say nope." Fei Duan's voice became cold, and his eyes were like gazes from the abyss of purgatory, making Ching and the other three sweat like rain, and Fei Duan's eyes that made Mistine village tremble even more made them feel more stressed. Ching was speechless for a while. The conditions he gave were so weak, not to mention that the decision was still in the hands of others. He could only fight to the death. As an elder who had experienced a real war in the village of Mist, his heart was extremely firm, and at the same time he focused his attention on Sasuke. Ching's idea is very simple. The cane has become unmanageable by the climate, and he and the others are also difficult to escape death today, so even if they fight to the death, they must talk about Sasuke strangling, and they can't let Konoha have a second falcon. "Come on," Ching said helplessly to Zai Wu, and at the same time took out a shuriken in his hand, and the green tendon in his right eye burst out, obviously using a white eye. "If you don't cut it, it will quickly seal the seal. Above the surface of the lake, the water will become more powerful, and chakra will save a lot. And Shiro will also start to seal at the same time, launching his most powerful attack. Water Dragon Bomb. Shui Dun 1000 kills Shui Xiang." A thick water dragon with countless water droplets turned into 1,000 books shrouded the flying section in front of him, as well as Xiaonan under him. Rumble the water dragon collided with countless thousand books onto a huge red skeleton, emitting a huge roar, but the flying segment and Xiaonan under the skeleton were unscathed. Ching on the other hand, seized the opportunity to pay Fei Duan's attention to them and launched a surprise attack at Sasuke on the side. Shui Dun Green Dragon Palm. As soon as Ching made a move, he put people to death, used his master ninjutsu, and went straight to Sasuke. With Sasuke's current body, if he is in this palm row, he is almost certain to die. Of course, it is also possible that his protagonist's aura will erupt, and it is impossible to say if he does not die. But Kakashi on the side is not a dead man. How could he let Ching kill this killer? At the moment when Ching-Tu entered, Kakashi finished his seal, and the blue thunder light condensed in his right hand, turning into a cloud of thunder in his hand. "Rachel." Kakashi jumped up to meet Ching and fought with his blue dragon palm, and then Kakashi's ratchet cut off Ching's right arm mercilessly with the momentum of destruction and decay. How could the power of S-level ninjutsu be blocked by the green dragon palm? Ninjutsu, which is known to have cut off thunder and lightning, is naturally extraordinarily powerful. Poof. Ching spat out a mouthful of blood, his body flew backwards weakly, and finally fell to the ground, although he was not dead, but being cut off an arm has greatly injured his vitality, and the blood that constantly spills on the wound makes him unable to move. Maybe if no one treats him, this guy who survived the Third Ninja World War will lose too much blood and die. Kakashi's right hand flashed with thunder light, slowly walking towards Ao. He was not a virgin-like person, he was a former member of the Dark Division, in his eyes, the enemy it should have been killed. Kakashi, leave him to me, you can go to rest next. Seeing that Kakashi was about to go over and lay a dead hand, Hidan hurriedly said, this guy himself is still a little useful. Kakashi, although he was speechless, he still gave Fei Duan a face, walked to the side and ignored it, and no longer chopping and white as pale looking at the skeleton in front of him that is constantly burning with crimson flames. That is, it has just blocked his and Shiro's ninjutsu, and evaporated both the water dragon and Senbon into water vapor, and even the flames on the surface of the lake were constantly steamed by Susa, turning into water vapor and floating into the air. This is not a level enemy at all. Without chopping a mouthful of saliva, his eyes looked decisively at Bai. Run away, Shiro. I will create opportunities for you, run away. Bai shook his head gently. For the first time he refused the request not to behead the adult. In his heart, if he did not behead the adult again, then what was the point of his existence? Episode 62. Looking at Bai who was still standing beside him, he couldn't help but be stunned, and randomly fell silent. He understood Bai's attachment, and also understood his meaning to Bai. At that moment, he no longer persuaded Bai, but raised the decapitation knife in his hand, and looked at Fei Duan with a resolute face. Since he can't live, die vigorously over there. Fei Duan looked at the two with some boredom, not interested in their so-called bonds, nor did they have the slightest sympathy to speak of. In Fei Duan's eyes, these two are just two pawns that can be reborn in dirt, and they are not powerful pawns, just to satisfy Fei Duan's so-called collecting proclivities. After all, if you don't slash, you can be regarded as one of the 7 swords of the fog, and Bai Wei also has a blood succession limit, and there is no loss in collecting the flying segment, right? At the moment, no longer give the two a chance to shoot, do not want to waste time. Amaterasu. Fei Duan's right eye rotated violently, chakra gathered in large numbers in his right eye, and a blood stain flowed from the corner of his right eye, and then released Amaterasu, which was known as the strongest fire. The pitch-black flames instantly enveloped the uncut and white figures, and the terrifying high temperature instantly turned their clothes into ashes, and the flames instantly spread to their bodies. Different people will also behave differently when facing death, some quiet, some frightened, and some full of unwillingness. And no matter how much he and Bai just looked at each other quietly, even if Amaterasu's flames were added, even if the pain continued to strike, it was only a slight frown, and the two came together in the countdown to death. Being able to die together may be their only wish now. Kamui. Fei Duan's left eye pupil burst out, and a tiny vortex appeared under the feet of Zai Wu and Bai, cutting their feet that were not shrouded in Amaterasu's flames and throwing them into the space of the sea of blood, as another material for the rebirth of filthy soil. Then, the two turned to ashes in the pitch-black flames, leaving only a decapitated knife with cracks and holes lying quietly at the bottom of the lake, like an abandoned child. A small vortex appeared in front of it, swept it into the high tower of the blood sea space, and quietly shelved together with the bloody March scythe, becoming the trophy of the flying segment. After killing the white slash, Fei Duan set his sights on the half-dead Qing. He is the main target of Fei Duan this time. Its appearance makes Fei Duan want to verify some interesting things. If the verification is successful, then Fei Duan's strength may grow by leaps and bounds. As Fei Duan's mind changed, above Susanoo's right hand, a crimson gourd appeared, and a beam of flame spat out from the gourd's mouth to turn into a huge long sword, and then slashed downward, and its target was Qing lying on the ground. The green pupil shrank sharply, and he could only watch the flame giant sword descend from the sky, and then boom. The flame giant sword left a huge burning mark on the ground, while Qing lying on the ground was burned to ashes by the flame giant sword. Sasuke trembled and looked at the skeleton giant in front of him. This power was really terrifying, and his eyes were filled with deep longing. Is this the power that the man also has? Sasuke looked at the skeleton burning with crimson flames in front of him, and once again developed an unstoppable desire for the kaleidoscope chakra eye. Only by opening those eyes could he be able to take revenge, which was the firmest thought in his heart now. As for Kakashi, he had seen this scene more than once before, but he was not surprised. He had even seen the mature body Susanoo used by the flying section, and there was really nothing to fuss about in this skeleton form. Kakashi is not surprised, but it does not mean that the others, except for Konan, almost everyone fell into sluggishness. Susanoo plus the horror brought by Amaterasu made it difficult for them to even breathe for a while. Even Sunset Red, a newly promoted upper shinobi, was terrified by the means of the flying segment, that majestic chakra. Is it really something that humans can have? Especially Susanoo's chakra, which is full of cold and evil, is annoying just by looking at it, not to mention its unparalleled lethality. No matter how surprised others were, after he finished the kill, he lifted Susanoo, his eyes returned to normal black pupils, and he turned his attention to the host panel in his mind. Host, fly segment fly, strength, super shadow level, does not count special abilities, blood succession boundary, eternal kaleidoscope Sharingan, 100,000 kill points required to upgrade, ice shield, not upgradable, physique, fire, thunder, water, earth, wind, ninjutsu, spell death, forbidden technique, dirt rebirth, 8 doors of Dunjia, instantaneous technique, fire done mastery, thunder done master, useless ninjutsu will not be described, special, immortal body, perception, weapons, bloody march scythe, black spear, decapitated big knife, kill point, 11861. After killing 2 elite upper ninja and 1 middle ninja, the killing points of the flying section once again reached more than 10,000, and he decisively chose to upgrade the spell Death Division with blood, and evolved it into a big killing weapon that can be launched without formation. It really doesn't work. Although the Death Division was upgraded with blood, which made Fei Duan quite happy, his experiment failed. According to Fei Duan's idea, Qing's right eye came from the white eye of the Hyuga clan and was integrated into his body, so if he killed Qing, would he get the blood succession limit white eye of the Hyuga clan? The flying segment was decisively verified, but it turned out that the killing system did not allow the flying segment to exploit the loophole, and the flying segment did not obtain the blood succession limit of the white eye through the blue, which made the flying segment quite annoyed. Because he planned to do so, if his guess was correct, then he would immediately run to the Land of Rain and kill Nagato, who now dominates the Land of Rain, so as to obtain his Eye of Reincarnation. Although the Eye of Reincarnation evolved from the Sharingan, according to common sense, only the Sharingan can be obtained by killing, but Nagato's reincarnation eye is directly derived from Uchiha Madara and cannot use the power of the Sharingan in his body, and can only use the Eye of Reincarnation. Even Uchiha still switches back and forth when using the kaleidoscope and the ability of the Eye of Reincarnation, which shows that the Eye of Reincarnation is almost a unique blood succession limit-like existence, and it itself requires the eternal kaleidoscope plus the wood cells of the original Hokage to be able to open the eyes. Unfortunately, the verification of the flying segment failed, and he could not obtain the reincarnation eye he expected through Nagato, and could only honestly rely on killing to obtain killing points for exchange. Episode 63. With the death of the others, the task of the 7th class was also completed, and Fei Duan and the others embarked on the way home, but some people were happy and some people were lost. Kakashi was naturally happy, and it didn't take much effort to strike the Kirihide village once, which was a pleasure for Konoha. And there are many lost people, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and the 2 disciples of Hida. Their disappointment is because of their weakness. Only Sasuke is shocked by the power of Hida's kaleidoscope chakra eye, and the desire to become stronger. As for Shirihong, it doesn't matter, she only went to Fei Duan as an associate teacher because she had an inexplicable feeling for Fei Duan, and she didn't feel anything about the strength of Fei Duan. After all, her understanding of power was not high. As for Fei Duan, he felt quite lost. After all, he lost an opportunity to take a shortcut. In his opinion, it was a great loss. The loss of a pair of reincarnation eyes. You say big is not big. Now he can only keep Nagato and let him be a stepping stone for Naruto's growth, which is the only role of his tragedy. The only thing that can make Fei Duan feel a little comforted by this trip is that he killed 3 people and gathered together to upgrade the killing point of Death Division with blood, and from then on, Death Division blood has become a terrifying spell that can be released anytime and anywhere. As soon as Fei Duan thought of the next stage of death with blood, Fei Duan couldn't help but be excited in his heart. That is a terrifying existence that can kill with one blow as long as he can get the blood of the enemy, even if the 6 immortals are alive. As long as they are cursed by Fei Duan, they are also certain to die, and Fei Duan still trusts the evaluation of the system. Returning to Konoha village, Fei Duan found a strange thing. There were huge posters posted everywhere in the entire village, and the appearance of the woman on the poster made Fei Duan feel a little familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it for a while. Isn't this Fuji Snow painting? Her role as Princess Feng Yun in the movie is my favorite role. Hinata, who was following Fei Duan, shouted with joy on his face, took Xiaonan's hand and said with a longing face, "Sister Xiaonan, brother Fei Duan, let's go to the movies." As soon as Fei Duan heard the words Fuji wind and snow painting, he instantly opened the valve of memory, and also remembered who this woman was, and at the same time, his heart was secretly excited. This world contains all the Hokage episodes and integrates them into various time periods. Let's go to the movie. I also want to see what kind of princess can make our Miss Hinata like it so much. Fei Duan touched Hinata's head dotingly, took her to the cinema, and directly left everyone else behind. Huh? I seem to have forgotten something. Fei Duan suddenly stopped and scratched his ears and cheeks. What did he forget? Shino the oil girl and Inuzuka looked at Hijuan with expectant eyes. Sensei, have you finally remembered that you still have 2 more disciples? Woohoo, it's so touching, the teacher hasn't forgotten us yet. What, Red Vice Professor, you also follow? I almost forgot you, it's also my deputy teacher. Fei Duan said to Shirihong, who was standing on the side, that Fei Duan planned to enjoy the feeling of hugging left and right in the dark cinema. Huh? Sunset Hong didn't react for a while. Fei Duan actually named himself and let himself follow. What did he want to do? Do you want to plot against yourself? For a while, Sunset Hong's mind was dazed, and all kinds of ideas burst out. You gone. Fei Duan decisively jumped off Xiaonan's back, picked up the sunset red, and strode away with Xiaonan Hinata under everyone's surprised eyes. Looking at the three departing, Shino calmly analyzed, "We may have met a fake teacher." "Inazukaya, I think you're right." "Akamaru, woo." The members of the 7th class on the side looked happy. "Fortunately our teacher is not like this. Although he is always late, he still does not leave us to play alone." However, the next moment, "Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura looked at her side with a puzzled face. Kakashi, who was still there just now, just disappeared. At this time, Sasuke pointed expressionlessly in the direction of Fly's departure, and Kakashi was following Fly's back, obviously planning to abandon them and watch a movie with Fly. Naruto studied Shino the oil girl and said, "We must have met a fake teacher." Sakura, Sasuke, 5 people and 1 dog looked at each other. They all felt the helplessness in each other's hearts. What else can be done with such a teacher? We are also desperate. I said, "Kakashi, what are you doing behind us? Can't you be a single dog and have fun alone?" Fei Duan mercilessly mocked Kakashi, who followed behind. The sunset red in his arms couldn't help but turn crimson when he heard Kakashi following behind, but feeling the breath of Fei Duan, her body was weak, and she couldn't resist Fei Duan's hegemony at all. As soon as Kakashi heard the word single dog, his silver hair exploded. This guy will always stimulate people in the most heartfelt way. It is really angry and helpless. Who told you that you can't beat him? But this time, Kakashi couldn't bear it. He wanted to die with Hibito. "I'll go to the movies too, can't I?" Kakashi stiffened his neck and said, he had already guessed that Hidan must be uneasy and kind to pull Xiaonan Shiri home to the cinema. Then, Kakashi was going to make a great light bulb at this time. Let the flying segment only see and not eat. This is Kakashi's revenge on the flying segment that has been mocking. He wants Fei Duan to know that single dogs will also fight back. Huh, Fei Duan sneered, obviously understanding Kakashi's thoughts, but with Kakashi's current ability, he also wanted to be a light bulb? Sorry, in the face of absolute strength, you don't even have the capital to be a light bulb. The flying segment is so confident. Kakashi only felt sweaty hair standing upside down. His eyes glanced at Fei Duan, and found that the guy was sneering in a low voice. Kakashi suddenly covered in hair. For the first time he had the idea of regretting his decision. Why did he provoke this pervert? Episode 64. Inside the cinema. Sure enough, it's this boring plus bloody plot again. It's really boring to defeat the Great Demon King. Why do you have to defeat the Great Demon King every time? The Great Demon King is looking for who to mess with. Fei Duan complained weakly about the plot. In addition to Fuji wind and snow painting, that is, wind flower shashui heroic and eye-catching, the whole drama has no bright spots in Fei Duan's opinion, especially the old-fashioned routine of defeating the Demon King, which makes Fei Duan unable to complain. Fei Duan is a man who aspires to become an evil god, and the Demon King should be not much different from the evil god, so why should he defeat the Demon King every time? Can't the Demon King catch the heroine and live happily together? As for Kakashi? From the moment he entered the cinema, he had been hypnotized by Fei Duan with a moon reading, and he would be lying at the door of the cinema and sleeping soundly. And the position of this last row was also chartered by the flying section, and he didn't like to be watched by others when he was adjusting the sunset. Out of the cinema, Fei Duan only felt that he was panicking. After all, it was a public place, and Fei Duan had not yet reached the realm of letting everyone watch. Ah. Life is so good. Fei Duan walked out of the bedroom refreshed, where Xiaonan was lying limply in the bed, sleeping soundly. She was too tired. At this time, it was already dusk, and Fei Duan suddenly remembered that he seemed to have forgotten that task, the task of protecting wind and flower Xiaoxue from entering the land of snow. Kamui. Fei Duan quickly used Kamui to transfer to the office of the 3 generations of old men. 3 generations of Hokage, flying segment. Say, whatever Ape Fei reclosed the book in his hand expressionlessly, and said lightly, he was already accustomed to the uninvited coming of the flying section, and even his skin became thicker. Isn't it a little yellow book after reading it? What's the big deal? Fei Duan touched his head and smiled awkwardly, used to Xiaonan walking on his back. Once he walked by himself, he would involuntarily use Shinwei's running skill. The most important thing is that Fei Duan himself can't figure out why every time he visits, 3 generations of old men are studying this intimate paradise? What an unsolved mystery. Is it really good that this guy with an old heart and never grow old has been studying these little books that create people all day? What, I'm just here to ask, is there a mission about the snow country? Fei Duan said with some embarrassment. Looking at the red old face of the 3 generations of old men, he was still a little embarrassed. After all, every time he came he disturbed other people's yaxing, didn't he? What are you asking this for? Just killed Qing from Mist Hidden Village, and you plan to provoke the snow ninja of the snow country? Ape Fei Ri said angrily, although he was happy that Fei Duan had hit the Wuyin village, but once this guy appeared in front of him, he was really not happy, and even had an urge to beat people. It's nothing, I heard that the scenery of the snow country is very good. I just want to visit it. Fei Duan has the expression that I am a good baby. You believe me? If I believe you, there will be a ghost. You didn't go out that time to make a bloody storm. Ape Flying Sun Chopper obviously has a deep understanding of Fei Duan, and knows that this guy can't stand loneliness and likes to do things. Flying segment, this time I may not only be bloody, but may also have to destroy the country of snow. There is no mission about the snow country for a while, and you are disappointed. Ape Flying Sun's happy sermon can disappoint Fei Duan, and he is still happy to see it. Huh? Fei Duan's brain couldn't turn around. Now the streets are full of posters with wind and snow. Why didn't the task appear? That's not right. Suddenly, Fei Duan remembered a key question. That is, Naruto hasn't even learned Orochimaru yet. You must know that in Yukiheim Ninja Fatsu, Naruto is the final boss, defeated by the colorful spiral pill. That means that what is happening now is just warming up for future missions, and Naruto learning the spiral pill happened after the Chushinobi exam, so it's no wonder that there are no missions now. Alas, let's go. Fei Duan's figure disappeared into the office in the spatial vortex, leaving a sluggish ape flying sun, completely unable to understand what this kid was doing. In the middle of the night, in front of the cinema, Kakashi sneezed one by one, slowly stood up from the cold floor, looked around without tears, and let out a roar that moved today. Fly. Segment. Episode 65. In the streets of Konoha, Hidan is taking Hinata Konan's daily shopping, and promised to train Hinata to be a lady, then he must do it, even if he accompanies a woman to shop with tears. It turns out that women's talent for shopping is really innate, even if this street has been transferred by them all to know the roots, they are still full of interest in shopping. If it were not for Fei Duan and Xiao Nan, the maid carrying him, I am afraid he would have been unable to stand it long ago. Huh? How could there be other people from the shinobi village who entered Konoha? Fei Duan looked curiously at the three teenagers with the forehead protection of the Sand Ninja village in front of him, and suddenly his eyes lit up. Isn't this Ai Luo, Kankuro, and Temari? Fei Duan instantly figured out what happened, and the arrival of these people meant that the Zonin exam was about to begin. The Sand Ninja village in the Land of Wind and the Konoha village in the Land of Fire are allies, and they jointly held the Chunin exam in Konoha, which was not only the ninja of the Sand Ninja village, but also the Oto Ninja village led by Orochimaru, and at the same time, Orochimaru killed 4 generations of Kazekage and made a big mess. Finally, something slightly interesting has happened. Fei Duan looked at the distant Ai Luo and the others. He had been looking forward to the Zonin exam for a long time, but before that, he still had one more thing to do. Little Hinata, you go home first, I'll go do something, and I'll come to you later to play. Fei Duan touched Hinata's little head and doted. Goodbye brother Fei Duan. Hinata obediently agreed, waved with Fei Duan, and then happily ran home. Today her Fei Duan brother bought her a lot of delicious food and fun. But she remembered that as a lady, she had to be obedient first and couldn't pester others all the time. Hinata implemented this very well. She can now be said to be obedient to Hida Duan, and even what Hinata Hayashi said may not work as well as Hinata's words. Master, Wei Xiaonan obviously thought of somewhere else, and his face began to turn red. Flying segment. The little maid is really becoming more and more sensible now. But now is not the time. Fei Duan saw that there was no one around, stretched his hand into Xiaonan's clothes, and played with it wantonly for a while, making Xiaonan gasp before he could stop. We have lost the ability to get down to business. Xiaonan, you want to be crooked, this should be the punishment of the master. Xiaonan Chanshan glanced at Fei Duan, stinky master. Take advantage of such a serious book. Fei Duan was able to withstand such temptation, and instantly exerted divine power, transferred Xiaonan and himself to the high tower of the Blood Sea space, and impatiently began the most primitive movement of human beings. I have to say that Fei Duan really loves the skill of Shenwei now, it's really convenient. Especially the favorite thing of the flying section, it is simply not too exciting. In the silent space of the Sea of Blood, no matter how Xiaonan wantonly groaned loudly, no one would hear it, and Fei Duan only felt extremely comfortable, which was much cooler than Xiaonan's suppressed feeling in the small courtyard. And Xiaonan seemed to have become wild in the Blood Sea space. Anyway, no one, she also let go of herself, and Fei Duan's unscrupulous tight bond. There was a constant sound of popping in the entire Blood Sea space. After a long time, Xiaonan came out of the Sea of Blood space with Fei Duan on his back, and both of them had a strong sense of satisfaction on their faces. And the place where they appeared was the deserted countryside outside Konoha village. This is the burial place in the memory of Faden, the burial place of the 4th generation Hokage. As a collector, Fei Duan naturally hopes that in his future Dirt Rebirth army, there must be some people who can support the facade, although the 4th generation of Wind Shadow is not strong, but he bears the name of a Wind Shadow after all. The only strong person in the Wind Shadow, the 3rd generation of Wind Shadow, has been reborn by the Big Snake Pill. Even the 1st generation of Fire Shadow and the 2nd generation of Fire Shadow, then there are very few people who can choose from the flying stage now. After all, he is not as crazy as the medicine master after him, digging people's ancestral graves everywhere. Fei Duan has not lost his heart to that extent, digging graves, or something. Fei Duan is still quite disgusted, but the one sent to the door in front of you will not hurt, pick it up in vain, and the flying section is still happy to see it. Under the command of Fei Duan, Xiaonan cut several large stones into pieces with pieces of paper, revealing the bodies of the 4 generations of wind shadows and their entourage inside, but apparently not long after he died, the corpses had not yet decomposed and stinked. That's him. Fei Duan looked at the corpse of the wind shadow costume, jumped down from Xiaonan's back, took out a shuriken, pierced it into the abdomen of the 4th generation wind shadow, and then transferred the shuriken to the blood sea space. Such a rough work flying section cannot be reluctant for a maid like Xiaonan to do it, and he only has 2 requirements for Xiaonan. First, take care of his own daily life. Second, warm the bed. Like killing people and taking blood or something, it is better to do it yourself, and the maid must have the professionalism of the maid, after all. As for why Fei Duan didn't directly transfer the corpse into the blood sea space with divine power? It's just because Fei Duan found that the blood sea space seems to be a good place, so many corpses are stored in it, and it seems to be a little uncomfortable psychologically, and even Fei Duan has already taken a small amount of blood from the mountain pepperfish Hanzo and the legs that are not chopped and white, and then threw it out. Like this secret space, it will be his exclusive, time space in the future. Master, you already have so many strong people in your hands that can be used to reincarnate dirt, why don't you reincarnate some of them first? Xiaonan was a little puzzled. She knew that Fei Duan had a filthy soil rebirth, so she understood the reason why Fei Duan collected the blood of the strong, but she didn't know much about the release conditions of the filthy soil rebirth technique. I'd like to try it now, but there is no sacrifice to offer. This ninjutsu requires the body of a living person to serve as a container for the soul. Fei Duan is a little helpless. He can't take Konoha's people to sacrifice. That would be a bit excessive, and it would be easy to detect. At present, there is no war, and there will not be a large number of hostile ninjas, so Fei Duan hit the idea of the snow country to help the wind and snow regain the country. So will there be fewer hostile people? At that time, even the flying segment will be able to resurrect the entire Uchiha clan with filthy soil, and at that time, the flying segment will be regarded as having a little inheritance. Episode 66. In a street in Konoha, Sakura is looking at Konohama with an angry face, and her hideous expression is telling everyone that once she catches Konohamaru, then he is finished. Help! Konohamaru shouted and hurriedly fled towards the street. Boom! Konohamaru hit something, bounced back, sat on the ground, and looked suspiciously at the 2 people standing in front of him. It hurts, Kankuro said lightly, and then took the robe on Konohamaru's chest and lifted it into the air. It hurts, stinky little devil. Kankuro repeated again. The force in his hand increased, causing Konohamaru to exhale in pain. Don't do this, be careful that you will be beaten later. Temari, who was standing on the side, faintly dissuaded, but it was only dissuaded from his mouth, and there was no movement to stop Kankuro. Sakura quickly apologized to Kankuro, and Naruto shouted, hurry up and let him go for me. However, Kankuro was expressionless, still clutching Konohamaru, who was constantly struggling in his hand. You guy. Naruto was annoyed that the other party had bullied Konohamaru so much, which filled his heart with anger, and he no longer hesitated at the moment, rushing towards Kankuro, wanting to save Konohamaru from his hand. However, as the fingers of Kankuro's left hand moved slightly, Naruto fell to the ground as if drunk. What? Konoha's shinobi is very weak, Kankuro mocked mercilessly, and said even more bluntly, you guy is very annoying, besides, I hate little ghosts the most, and the little age is so arrogant. Speaking of this, Kankuro's face turned cold, revealing a cruel smile. I really want to kill him. Naruto Sakura's face changed, and Konohamaru's 2 friends were in tears, shivering on the side. Temari next to Kankuro also shrugged helplessly and turned his head to the side. Forget it, I don't care. I'll kill this dwarf wintermelon first, and I'll solve that verbose little ghost over there. Kankuro smiled cruelly, and slammed his left hand into a fist towards Konohamaru. Abominable. Naruto's eyes were torn apart, and he immediately rushed forward. Phew. Konohamaru fell to the ground and gasped, being grabbed by Kankuro desperately to make it difficult for him to breathe. On the side, Kankuro's hand was splattered with blood, and he let out a cry of pain, and I saw a small stone stuck in Kankuro's right hand that had just grabbed Konohamaru, and the blood stained the stone red and oozed out from the edge. Kankuro's face changed, looking at the stone deep into the flesh and blood, his face showed a trace of solemnity, and at the same time looked at the big tree next to the street. On a branch, Sasuke was sitting on it, tossing a stone in one hand, and said to Kankuro with an expressionless face, you guy is too presumptuous in someone else's village. As soon as Sakura saw Sasuke, her eyes immediately lit up, and her painting style changed, and the whole person looked like she loved Sasuke. And Naruto was stunned, thinking to himself, damn Sasuke, the limelight has all been stolen by him. Temari next to Kankuro was also slightly red, and secretly said in his heart, he looks quite handsome. Konohama took the opportunity to run back to Naruto's side, while Kankuro said with an ugly face, another annoying little ghost. Sasuke's face turned cold, and he couldn't help but exert force in his hand, pinched the stone into powder, and said coldly, roll quickly, if you don't roll again, kill you. A faint killing intent emanated from Sasuke's body, and he, who had already been stained with the blood of his enemies, looked at the matter of killing people like drinking water, and there was no difficulty at all. And Kankuro and Temari below changed their faces, and they both felt the pressure from Sasuke. Unlike in the original plot, Kankuro did not continue to taunt Sasuke, but stood in place with an ugly face, unable to speak for a while. They really felt a threat from Sasuke, and if they didn't leave, he would really do it. But if they really left like this, wouldn't they have lost the face of the Sand Ninja Village? This is unbearable for Kankuro. Even if he dies, he can't lose the face of Sand Shinobi Village. Forced to endure the pain on his right hand, he put the puppet he was carrying behind him to the ground, and looked at Sasuke with a fierce face, ready to do his best to let him see the power of the Sand Shinobi Village. Stop, Kankuro! Just as Kankuro was about to make a move, a cold voice came from the tree. Sasuke looked coldly at the other side of the tree, and on one of the branches hung a young man with a gourd on his back. He looked at Kankuro with a cold face, and said lightly, "Don't be embarrassed here." The faces of the people below changed one after another, shocked by this person who suddenly appeared, and the other party appeared on the tree so quietly, without him noticing. Kankuro looked even more frightened. I love Ro. Sasuke on the tree glanced at Iai Luo on the side, and Iai Luo also looked at Sasuke, and both of them secretly remembered each other in their hearts. This will be a big enemy. The next moment, Iai Luo turned into a wisp of sand and condensed on the ground, stood up, and said to his faint opponent Ju and Kankuro, "Let's go, we are not here to play." Kankuro and Temari obediently followed behind Era and planned to leave. Stop. Sakura suddenly ran forward and questioned the three, "Seeing as your guardians are not from our village, even if they are an ally of the Wind Country, they can't enter our village at will." Temari turned around, mockingly took out a pass, and said the situation of the Chunin exam. Sakura had to retreat angrily, originally planning to use this as an excuse to avenge Konohamaru, but now it seems that it is obviously impossible. Not to mention, Sasuke also injured the other party's people. After Temari finished explaining, the three of them gradually walked away slowly. "Hey, the one in front, what's your name?" Sasuke stopped them again and asked. Temari turned his head with an excited look and turned slightly red. "Do you ask me?" 3 black lines appeared on Sasuke's head, and he pointed at Aro. "No, I asked about the gourd next to you." Temari and Kankuro turned away one after another, and Iai Luo turned around and responded faintly. "Iai Luo of the Sandfall, I'm also very interested in you. What is your name?" "Sasuke Uchiha." Sasuke replied. Wait. What about me? What about me?" Suddenly, Naruto broke the silence and interjected. Iroh looked at Naruto and said lightly, "I'm not interested." Naruto, Episode 67. Fei Duan stood on the roof not far away, witnessing the whole process of this farce, and his eyes were on Iai Luo's body from beginning to end, because inside his body is a huge tanuki, a crane. "Do you want to take it over?" Fei Duan fell into deep thought. Tailed beast. This question has been plaguing Fei Duan now. He knows almost all the hiding places of the tailed beasts and the location of the human pillar force, but he has been wondering whether to seize it now or reap it later. You must know that Naruto finally received a gift from all the tailed beasts, plus the reincarnation of Azura. He obtained the body of an immortal, and he could master 6 Tao-seeking jade. This shows that the power of the tailed beast is obviously still particularly important. Then the problem of the flying stage arises. Once he captures all the tailed beasts, then the Shao organization formed by Nagato and Obito will definitely receive its own impact, and it is very likely that Kuro will come to the door for this. Shao organized the flying section is not afraid, but that Black Absolute has made the flying section a little jealous to this day. How did he rebel against Uchiha in an instant and then resurrect the big tube with Kagaya? This question has never been answered accordingly, so the flying section has always been worried about it, and the weirdness of the black is really terrifying. The eldest and second sons of Dadamu Kagaya are both such powerful existences, but they have also passed away in time. But this Black Absolute is known as the third son, but it has always existed in the long river of time, and even spent countless hours to lay out. Just thinking about it is terrifying. Fei Duan shook his head, put this terrifying conspirator aside, decided to not pay attention to the tailed beast for the time being. He has a killing system. Once his plan is successful, he can have the strength to match the big tube of wood Kagaya, and then he will naturally be fearless. In that case, then I'd better go and see this terrifying scientist in the Hokage world first. Fei Duan collected his mind and decided to meet the character he had been looking forward to, Big Snake Pill. This guy who takes pleasure in developing and researching various forbidden arts, Fei Duan is very looking forward to it, especially since he still has the remains of the first Hokage and the second Hokage in his hands. This is an imperative for the flying segment. Once the flying segment upgrades the dirt rebirth to the perfect level, then even a strong person like the Thousand-Hand Pillar or Uchiha will be constrained by the flying segment and become a pawn in his hand. That feeling of mastering the world makes Fei Duan look forward to it. The faint lines twisted in the invisible space, and the figure of the flying segment dissipated in the air, and the next moment, his figure appeared in a dark and cold environment. Flying segment? Tuanzang's bear left. I looked at the person in front of him, wondering why he came back to find himself at this moment. Although Bitenjin made Tuanzo have to obey Fei Duan's orders, his thinking still did not change, and even many intrigues and tricks were carried out in his hands. Fei Duan sat down on Tuanzang's desk unceremoniously, and said with a big grin, take me to meet your partner, your excellency, Orochimaru. Tuanzang's face changed drastically. He had never mentioned his secret relationship with the Great Snake Pill to anyone, not even those in the route who had been sealed by him. He did not confide in the slightest. But how did Fei Duan learn about his relationship with the Great Snake Pill? Fei Duan looked at Tuanzang with interest, and secretly felt the strength of the other heavenly gods. The strongest illusion technique that can quietly change the will of others. Sometimes it is really scary. Yes, Tuanzang stood up, answered, and planned to walk out with the flying segment, although he felt puzzled, but for the flying segment's order, he could only meticulously carry it out. Danzo-sama. Lord Whip. The oil girl took the route, and another route member wearing a mask saw Tuanzang and Fei Duan, who pushed the door out, and immediately saluted, not the slightest wonder why the Fei Duan suddenly came out of it. In fact, they have long been accustomed to the elusive flying segment, and this rising killing star in 3 years has long left a deep impression in their hearts, being called the existence of black and white death or undead ninjas. I'll go out with the scoundrel, you don't need to follow, Tuanzang explained simply, and flew away. The flying section followed. The base of the big snake pill was very secretive. If there was no Tuanzang to lead the way, he could not find it. The two kept shuttling through the forest, and Fei Duan opened the eternal kaleidoscope to carefully observe Tuanzang's arm. The primary cells in the right hand had been completely fused with the 10 Sharingan. This experiment from the Great Snake Pill was obviously very successful. But Fei Duan could also sense that once Tuanzang unlocked the seal and used the ability of the Sharingan, then his chakra would face huge consumption, and his recovery ability could not keep up with the speed of consumption. Fei Duan once again turned his gaze to Tuanzang's right eye, and in the eye socket hidden by the white cloth, there was already a chakra fluctuation, which was obviously also a Sharingan, and the source of these Sharingan eyes was the loot that Tuanzang collected after the disaster of Uchiha's extermination of the clan. Arrived, Tuanzang suddenly fell from the branch and said to Fei Duan. Fei Duan stopped and slowly stepped forward. His eye saw a huge snake head, the mouth of the giant snake was wide open, and the 2 razor-like fangs were covered with moss, and even the snake's head was covered with moss. Is this the place? Fei Duan looked at the deep passage in the snake's mouth. A trace of disgust flashed in his eyes, and he secretly cursed in his heart. Sure enough, it is the place where the snake lives, wet and dark. It is really unpleasant. The big snake pill is at the bottom of this area. There is his research institute inside, and my right arm is the sincerity of the big snake pill to cooperate with me. Tuanzang seemed to have noticed Fei Duan's attention to his right arm and took the initiative to explain it to him. Master Tuanzhou, I haven't seen you for a long time. Did you bring me a new experimental product? A gloomy voice echoed in the woods, like a female ghost whispering in your ear in the middle of the night, which was terrifying. Fei Duan's pupils turned, staring coldly at the young man who suddenly appeared at the mouth of the cave, with pale skin, handsome face, black hair, and snake-like pupils. Ling Jun Great Snake Pill, one of the 3 ninjas, appeared. Episode 68. I smell the Uchiha clan. Orochimaru raised his head and stared at Fei Duan, his scarlet tongue licking at the corner of his mouth, just like a poisonous snake staring at delicious prey, and the greed in his eyes was not concealed in the slightest. He's not the test product I brought, Orochimaru, Tuanzang said coldly to the big snake pill. Although they were cooperation objects, the relationship between the two was not as harmonious as expected. Oh? Isn't it a test product? Orochimaru's gloomy eyes still looked at Fei Duan without any scruples, and guessed, as far as I know, there are only 3 people left in the current Uchiha clan, Itachi, Sasuke, and Hibi Duan. Itachi has defected to join the Shao organization, and Sasuke is still a child, so you are the undead ninja flying section that has become famous in the past few years. The big snake pill guessed the identity of Fei Duan, but his expression still did not change. In his heart, he had absolute confidence in himself. Big snake pill, your eyes are really disgusting. No wonder they rushed out of the hands of the weasel and hid like a dead snake in such a filthy place. Fei Duan looked at Orochimaru's greedy expression, and suddenly felt unhappy. Did he think of himself as Sasuke's idiot? Think you'll be at his mercy like Sasuke? Little ghost, the big snake pill's gaze instantly became cold, and the strong killing intent pervaded, causing the temperature in the woods to suddenly decrease. Uchiha Itachi has always been a bone spur stuck in the throat of the big snake pill, making it difficult to swallow for several years, like a crow in his arms, but now Fei Duan has no hesitation to mention it, and even mocks the big snake pill as a dead snake that has fled in a hurry. Orochimaru's heart burned with raging anger, coupled with the desire for the Sharingan and the body of the Uchiha clan. He couldn't bear it anymore, and the murderous aura shrouded Fei Duan, and those vertical eyes were filled with an aura called cruelty. Oh? Do you vent your hatred for Uchiha Itachi on me? Under this strong killing intent, Fei Duan did not have any reaction, but said mockingly. Then, his pupils rotated violently, and the complex and strange patterns of the eternal kaleidoscope appeared in his pupils, and the evil and cold chakra circulated in his pupils, and said to the big snake pill in a cold voice, "You seem to have chosen the wrong object, the big snake pill." The big snake pill looked at the changes in Fei Duan's pupils, his body trembled slightly, his eyes became more and more greedy, but he produced something called fear. However, this time, the big snake pill did not intend to give up the good body of the flying section easily, and after being defeated by the weasel's illusion, how could he not change in the slightest in the past few years? He is a snake, a highly venomous snake, a hunter hiding in a dark corner waiting for an opportunity, and after years of preparation, he naturally has the means to deal with it. I saw that the pupils of the big snake pill gradually dimmed and dull, and he was lost and sluggish. Although the pupil technique of the Uchiha family is powerful, its most critical illusion technique needs to look at the enemy and transmit the illusion through the enemy's eyes, and as a snake, although I cut off my vision, but the snake's sense of smell can still allow me to clearly perceive your actions, Fei Duanjuan, or honestly become my experimental material, become a part of me. The voice of the big snake pill was full of fanaticism. It seemed that he had been looking forward to this day for a long time, and today, his long-awaited perfect body had been delivered to him. How could he let it go? Fei Duan's face finally showed a hint of interest. He didn't expect that the big snake pill actually thought of the same method as the medicine master pocket, or maybe the medicine master pocket originally followed everything left by the big snake pill? Finally, it makes people a little interested, except for illusions like Izanami that are more disgusting than other gods. All the illusions of Sharingan require the eyes to look at each other, and Orochimaru can be regarded as a very thorough understanding, worthy of being a guy who can plan for years in order to see Sasuke's body. Fei Duan finally raised his evaluation of the big snake pill in his heart. How about it? Honestly, teach the body out. I can promise to help you find a brand new body and let you continue to live. The big snake pill is almost a little crazy. Since he was defeated by Itachi with the illusion of writing chakra, the body of the Uchiha family has almost become his obsession, and now the arrival of the flying segment has completely detonated his greed. Even reason has been suppressed, and subconsciously ignores whether the flying segment is a soft persimmon. But the hidden hole cards of the great snake pill are also the reason for his confidence, and he believes that with those two existences, even if he faces Uchiha Itachi again, the great snake pill has enough confidence to be able to compete with it. His shadow of Uchiha Itachi is too deep, and in his heart, he feels that the strength of Itachi is unmatched, and even if he has a whole card, he still avoids Itachi. Great snake pill, did the repeated reincarnation of undead make your soul an idiot? Can you say such stupid things? Who under heaven can compare to me? Fei Duan was really amused by the words of the big snake pill. Uchiha relied on a pair of eyes, but where he had any immortal body, how could he be comparable to Fei Duan? Humph. It's useless to talk more. Shadow snake hand. The right hand in the cuff of the big snake pill turned into several dark purple poisonous snakes, constantly extending its body to bite the flying section. Once bitten, the poisonous snake will inject the toxin carefully prepared by the big snake pill, which will paralyze people's nerves and be unable to move. Fei Duan's eyes looked coldly at the swift viper, and sneered in his heart, the big snake pill is really cautious. Even if he faces the strong man of the Uchiha clan, he will first test it, and not release his whole card at the first time. Chidori sharp gun. The crimson-white thunder shot out from the right sword finger of Fei Duan, and with a wave of Fei Duan's right hand, the long sword transformed from thunder easily cut off the poisonous snake, fell to the ground under the thunder, and kept twitching and rolling, and a painful hiss came out of his mouth. Lei Duan? Orochimaru's eyes froze, flashing a trace of puzzlement. As far as he knew, what the Uchiha clan was best at was fire and the application of chakra eyes, but this guy in front of him seemed to be a different type. The Chidori sharp gun just now was at least a B-level ninjutsu, and might even reach A level. The big snake pill didn't understand a little. As a member of the Uchiha clan, if he didn't refine the fire done but went to practice thunder done, this is not a play. Episode 69, Hidden Shadow Multi-Snake Hand. The great snake pill once again summoned poisonous snakes, but the number was incomparably huge, overwhelming like an ocean of snakes, sweeping towards the flying section. Is it still such a boring ninjutsu? Fei Duan felt a little bored, and made a seal with one hand, and chakra quickly condensed. Fire escape, fire extinguished. Nourishment. The blazing flames instantly flooded the sea of snakes with overwhelming force. Countless poisonous snakes were burned in the flames, making a barbecue-like sound, and this forest was completely turned into a sea of fire. The temperature rose rapidly, and the space seemed to become a little distorted under the high temperature. Evil snake wrist explosion. The big snake pill grabbed the blank side of the flying section at the moment when the sea of fire and the sea of snakes intersected, quickly froze, summoned two poisonous snakes the thickness of water tanks, suddenly drilled out of the soil, and in an instant they were entangled in the flying section. Boom! The moment the giant snake wound up, the big snake pill immediately detonated the two giant snakes with chakra, emitting a huge explosion, and countless smoke and dust were stirred up and scattered around. Damn it! What kind of ninjutsu is this? The big snake pill did not feel the slightest surprise, because the flying section was hit by his own ninjutsu, but cursed in a low voice. Because, under his perception, Fei Duan still stood in place unscathed, and even the corners of his clothes were not damaged, and the dust passed through his body as if he did not exist in this space. And this is the power of Shinwei, arbitrarily switching the body in two spaces, originally only lasted for 5 minutes at most, but with the eternal kaleidoscope of the flying segment, naturally will not be subject to this limitation, and even he can use this ability as he wants. However, Fei Duan, who has always liked to fight in person, rarely uses this weird ability, and the reason why he uses it now is only because Fei Duan has some dislike of snakes and does not want it to touch him, plus he does not want dust to stain his clothes. The art of the great waterfall. The big snake pill shot again, but the target was not the flying segment, but the roaring flame. If it continued to burn like this, I am afraid that the entire forest would turn into ashes. You must know that there is a base hidden under the big snake pill, and he does not want this natural bunker to be destroyed by the flying segment. Wow. Water vapor began to permeate the forest, causing the originally hot environment to change rapidly, the temperature dropped rapidly, and the vision gradually became blurred. And this is the purpose of the big snake pill. The chakra eye is not a white eye, it will also be hindered. But Orochimaru didn't know that the Sharingan could observe chakra, and the more powerful the person, under the observation of the Sharingan, it was like a roaring torch in the night, attracting the attention of the flying segment. It's really disgusting. Does this guy like to hide in the shadows so much? Fei Duan was a little bored, although he could observe the chakra flow of the big snake pill to judge his actions. But Fei Duan didn't like this feeling of being blind. There was a vast white mist in front of him, and he only hated himself now for not killing the ninja who had the blood of the wind escape blood, or to learn the wind escape ninjutsu, so that the current situation would not occur. Suddenly, Fei Duan thought of a good way. Kamui. The pupil power of the left eye burst out, the strange pattern of the eternal kaleidoscope continued to rotate, and a huge spatial vortex appeared not far in front of the flying section, exuding a terrifying attraction. The surrounding white fog was instantly sucked into it, even the towering trees growing nearby were uprooted, the dirt, sand and gravel were sucked into the spatial vortex, but in the blink of an eye, this forest turned into a bare and pitted wasteland, and the white fog around it also disappeared. So powerful. So powerful. Is this the power of the kaleidoscope chakra eye? The big snake pill looked at the forest destroyed by the space vortex. His eyes were like looking at a perfect treasure, more and more fanatical. Greed had completely covered his reason. He decided to use his whole card. The flying stage is powerful. It is worth him to use that whole card. But Fei Duan didn't want to play anymore, knowing that he didn't come to find the big snake pill to kill him, but had other purposes. Amaterasu. Ugh. Orochimaru let out a hoarse cry of pain, and the pitch-black flames burned on his pale body, but after a scream, he calmed down and hung a smile in the pitch-black flames. Is this the strongest flame in the legend? It really is a powerful flame that cannot be extinguished. However, Fei Duanjuan, this trick has no effect on me. The big snake pill smiled, his body squirmed, his lips opened like a snake, and a head was exposed from the inside, with a little mucus, looking extremely terrifying. In the blink of an eye, a brand new large snake pill stood in front of Fei Duan's eyes, and the previous body had been burned to ashes by Amaterasu. Fei Duan patted his head and said with some disgust, I actually forgot that this guy still has the skills of this disgusting person. Special. Looking at the big snake pill covered in mucus, Fei Duan almost didn't spit out his breakfast. It was really disgusting. Psychic arts, dirt rebirth. Orochimaru's pale face seemed to become even whiter, beads of sweat dripping from his forehead, channeling these three powerful beings. Even he felt quite strenuous. But the corners of his mouth showed a smile. As long as the successful psychic came out of them, then the big snake pill had nothing to worry about. Fei Duan's eyes also became solemn, looking at the three earthy yellow coffins slowly rising in front of him. His heart was still somewhat doubtful and vigilant, and his eyes were completely placed on one of the coffins. The coffin had a big character Chu written on it, representing the identity of the person lying inside the original Hokage, between the 1,000-hand pillars. This is not because Fei Duan is not vigilant. You must know that the original Hokage in the Battle of the End Valley but will have opened the eternal kaleidoscope and control the 9 tails of Madara, have defeated the existence, although the flying segment is confident, but will not feel that he can be much stronger than Madara. His only advantage over Madara is the ability of Kamui, which will make the original Hokage's attack invalid. But according to the perspective of the immortality of dirt rebirth and possession of infinite chakra, it is also difficult for him to achieve victory. The lilac chakra condensed around Phaeton's body, and a huge skeleton appeared instantly, and some chakras on the skeleton's body were like veins constantly filling the skeleton's bod. Episode 7. Episode 70. This what is it? Is Uchiha's hidden power? Orochimaru looked at the giant in front of him in shock, and he could clearly feel the cold and evil chakra coming from the giant. And the giant itself is condensed by a huge chakra, and such a huge chakra is so condensed and compressed, which makes the big snake pill incomprehensible. Is this really what a kaleidoscope can do? Fei Duan is located in the crystal between the foreheads of the complete body Susanoo, looking coldly below, waiting for the one in the coffin to come out. That is the real enemy of the Fei Duan. Tuanzong, who had hit on the side early, had a horrified look in his eyes, and he had always been greedy for Uchiha Sharingan, and he also knew Sharingan very well. But today he saw a scene that made him unbelievable. The lilac giant towered between heaven and earth, a pair of wings that covered the sky stretched wantonly. Although it was just standing quietly in place, it brought unparalleled pressure to people. Oh yes, Finally, the lid of the coffin fell down, revealing two bodies with cracks like ceramics, the first Hokage, Senjakuma, and the second Hokage, Senjakuma, and inside the third coffin was a corpse of a ninja lying in Konoha and a pile of white paper. The eyes between the thousand-hand pillar and the thousand-hand pillar suddenly opened, and there was a trace of doubt in their dull eyes. Abominable. Did the fourth generation of Hokage actually fail to be reborn? The big snake pill said with some annoyance. He still didn't know what caused such a result at this time. Due to the terrifying pressure of the flying section, he tried his best to channel the most powerful three, and the result was that one failed, which made the proud him a little difficult to accept. But it should be enough, after all. This is the first Hokage and the second Hokage who are known as the strongest ninjas. Orochimaru thought comfortingly, controlling the pillar and the chest to walk out of the coffin, and then integrated two shurikens with talisman paper into their bodies. Here it is? The thousand-hand pillar finally spoke, and asked suspiciously. The big snake pill has not yet activated the control ability of soil rebirth, and the thinking of the two is controlled by themselves, but they can't move freely. Is it actually this technique? Dirt rebirth. Senja looked at his body, felt the body that was different from the living person, and understood his situation. It's all said that you don't study such ninjutsu. This is desecrating the dead, now okay? Senjutsu said angrily, obviously very dissatisfied with Senjutsu's non-stop words and developing such an evil ninjutsu. Senja didn't speak, just looked at Orochimaru calmly. He wanted to know the purpose of the sorcerer summoning the two of them. Let's save the old or something for later, the first generation of adults, the second generation of adults, but there are strong enemies in front of you, and you have to rely on the help of two to solve it, the big snake pill said grimly, looking at the flying section located on the giant's forehead, and slowly said, huh? The thousand-hand pillar followed the gaze of the big snake pill, and suddenly his expression changed greatly, and his dull gaze fluctuated a little. Madara? No, not him. Did the Uchiha clan once again appear such a strong person? It was difficult to suppress the surprise in his heart. After many years, the Uchiha family had grown to such a point at one time. I said that this is an evil race, and the eldest brother should have cut them down in the first place. Feeling the majestic chakra giant in front of him, Chansho felt resentful, he who had always held a grudge against the Uchiha clan, and when he saw a Uchiha powerhouse like Fei Duan, he was naturally angry in his heart. The big snake pill looked at the endless two of them, secretly pinched a seal, and in an instant, there was no expression in the eyes of the two, turning into two killing machines that only knew how to fight. So it is ha. Fei Duan looked at the original Hokage who came out of the coffin, and his originally guarded heart also relaxed. Originally, Fei Duan was also curious about why the thousand-hand pillar, as the god of ninjas, could not even deal with the three generations of Hokage after being reborn from the soil, and was even sealed by the three generations of Hokage. It turned out that the problem was in the body of the big snake pill. The kaleidoscopic chakra eye of the flying section obviously observed that the chakra fluctuations on the first and second generations were not violent, and it was at the level of the shadow level, and the eyes of the two were even more dull, which was completely incomparable with the filthy soil rebirth of the later medicine master. Therefore, Fei Duan has a bold guess, the second generation of Hokage, or it is difficult to say, but the 90% possibility of the first generation Hokage Itachi is only a semi-finished product of the rebirth of the soil, and what descends into the soil is only a small part of the consciousness of the first generation, not a complete soul. Otherwise, it would not be that later, after the great snake pill was reborn in the first generation, he clearly said that he could not control such words between the thousand-hand pillars at all. In this way, the pressure that Fei Duan originally felt instantly dissipated, with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, and mocked, "Big snake pill, is this what you call a whole card? It seems that you don't know what the true strength of Senjakuma, known as the ninja god, looks like. Humph. Then let's speak with facts." The big snake pill snorted coldly, feeling very angry about Fei Duan's contempt. How dare this guy underestimate himself? Kill him. As soon as Orochimaru gave an order, the thousand hands pillar and the thousand hands pillar immediately took action. Mudan tree realm has arrived. Shui dun, heavenly cry. Boom. Countless thick strands suddenly grew on the originally abandoned land, spreading and winding along Susanoo's legs, and after strangling Susanoo's legs, there was no movement, and Senju squirted countless water needles from his mouth, piercing the flying section of Susanoo's forehead. Bite. Bite. However, the attack of the two did not seem to have any effect. Fei Duan chuckled. The two people reborn from this incomplete filthy soil really weakened him with little interest. Amaterasu. Fei Duan's right eye pupil opened slightly, and the eternal kaleidoscope in it rotated violently, and pitch-black flames spread from the body between the thousand-hand pillars and the thousand-hand pillars, instantly shrouding the two in a roaring flame. Although the reincarnated bodies of the soil were constantly repaired, Amaterasu's never-extinguishing nature also continued to destroy their bodies, forming an awkward stalemate for a while. How so? How could you not even dodge this? The big snake pill roared lowly, and the whole card in his eyes became defenseless in Fei Duan's hands, and even the giant's defense could not be opened. It's not interesting. Why do you have to use force to solve the problem than me? Fei Duan shook his head helplessly. Susanoo's right hand was raised, and a huge black ninja dart appeared in his hand, which was also the ability of Kamui Susanoo, a unique ability, Kamui Shuriken. The huge ninja dart flew out of Susanoo's hand, carrying a strange ability that could tear through space, and in the blink of an eye, it was about to reach Orochimaru. But after all, it is a big snake pill that is one of the 3 ninjas, and its reaction speed is incomparable. Psychic Art, Triple Rashomon. 3 huge portals rose from the earth, the doors were carved with terrifying demon grimaces, and the 3 portals were erected in front of the big snake pill one by one, guarding them to the rear, and the thick portals had extremely terrifying defensive power. And yet, the shuriken with terrifying spatial cutting ability, like cutting tofu, instantly cut the 3 Rashomon in half, and shot towards the big snake pill like a broken bamboo. Impossible. The big snake pill's eyes were shattered, a pair of snake pupils were full of disbelief. His strongest defensive technique was so vulnerable in front of Fei Duan. Could it be that the Uchiha clan was really strong to the point of being unmatched? Phew, blood splattered out, and the big snake pill was cut in 2 by Shinwei's shuriken in his horrified gaze, his eyes still staring at the flying segment, completely unable to understand why the flying segment was so incredible. Boom. Half of the big snake pill's body fell to the ground, making a dull sound, and a pair of eyes stared at the sky deadly, as if death could not be blinded. Fei Duan dispersed the huge complete body Susanoo, slowly walked towards the corpse of the big snake pill, and then was attracted by the figures of the 2 people between the Senju pillar and the Senju pillar. Is it possible to obtain part of the bodies of the first and second generations of themselves from the body of the rebirth of the soil? Fei Duan thought about it, but still felt that it was unlikely. After all, he knew the complete method of soil rebirth. It looked like the figure of the first and second generation, but in fact it was just 2 other unrelated corpses wrapped inside. Big snake pill, I know you don't die so easily, why lie on the ground and pretend to die? Fei Duan walked to the corpse of the big snake pill, kicked the big snake pill's head with his foot, and looked down at the big snake pill's head. A moment later, the originally lifeless upper half of the body was rejuvenated, and the eyes of the big snake pill also regained their radiance, still with those dark eyes, looking at the flying section standing in front of him. Who are you? He actually knew me so well, it was impossible for that guy in Tuanzang to know so much. The big snake pill was really a little scared. Fei Duan actually knew everything about his means, and even pointed out the secret of his use of immortal rebirth at the beginning. You don't need to understand who I am. Originally, I just came to borrow something from you and talk to you about cooperation, by the way, but you don't seem to be so friendly. Fei Duan said lightly, not caring at all about the somewhat embarrassed demeanor of the great snake pill. Big snake pill, I just brought Fei Duan over to cooperate with you, but you are so ignorant. Tuanzang, who was watching the battle from afar, came over to prove his intentions for the flying section. Borrow something? Cooperate? While the big snake pill asked, his distant lower body turned into a pool of milky white liquid, slowly flowing from the ground to the upper body of the big snake pill, and then blocked the wound, gradually condensing the shape of his legs. The next moment, the big snake pill slowly stood up, panting in his mouth. Obviously the battle with Fei Duan made it consume a lot, especially Fei Duan's Shinwei shuriken, which made him consume a lot of chakra to repair his body. Fei Duan looked at the liquid body of the big snake pill with interest. This move is sometimes really good as a means of saving life. At least the later medicine master used this trick to make Itachi and Sasuke suffer a lot. How, do you want to continue? Fei Duan said playfully, but he knew that Orochimaru still held a whole card in his hand that he least wanted to use, that is, the Yagi no Jutsu, a Yagi great snake that turned into 8 heads and 8 tails, with a terrifying huge body and attack ability. But Orochimaru obviously understood that even if he used the Yagi technique, he could not defeat Hidan, and that terrifying thing had actually left him with an unimaginable psychological shadow. But his desire to seize the body of the Uchiha clan became stronger and stronger. I don't know, you need to borrow something from me. With your strength, it seems that there is nothing in me that deserves your attention. The big snake pill's eyes were full of doubts, and his cold voice was also full of puzzlement. What I want to borrow from you is the remnants of the first and second Hokage. Fei Duan stretched out his finger and pointed at the Thousand Hands pillar and the Thousand Hands pillar that were constantly burning by Amaterasu. As a collection control, this is the main purpose of his coming here. As for cooperation or something, it is just a temporary intention of Fei Duan. What do you want this for? The big snake pill's pupils shrank, and he had some kind of guess in his heart, but he was not sure. Fei Duan looked at the vigilant look of the big snake pill, and said lightly, you don't need to worry about this, big snake pill. Saying that, Fei Duan's voice began to turn cold, and there was also a trace of killing intent in his pupils, although it was difficult for the big snake pill to really kill, but if he didn't cooperate, then Fei Duan didn't mind letting him fall into endless resurrection. A trace of cold sweat fell from between the big snake pill's forehead, and he could clearly feel the unconcealed murderous intent of Fei Duan. I give. The big snake pill decisively chose to agree to the request of the flying segment. He is now carefully planning a big operation. If he is destroyed halfway by the flying section now, then he really wants to cry without tears. So happy to work with. The corner of Fei Duan's mouth hooked a smile, in the army of Dirt Rebirth, there is finally a guy who can support the scene, the first Hokage, the god of ninjas, all kinds of titles show his strength, which makes Fei Duan look forward to it, and when he can really control the thousand-hand pillar, it is also when he gets the immortal magic Mu Duan. Episode 72. Please follow me. Orochimaru respectfully attitude, for the strong, naturally have a certain respect. Fei Duan nodded, looked at Tuanzong, and said, you can go back. Tuanzong received the order of the flying section, and without saying a word, he turned and left. A look of interest flashed in the snake pupils of the big snake pill, and it was a very strange thing in itself that this sinister and cunning guy should obey the orders of the silver-haired boy in front of him so much. You controlled him using moon reading? Orochimaru asked with interest. He didn't care if Fei Duan would be angry. In his opinion, since Fei Duan mentioned cooperation, then he must have something to do. Since he has a use value, how can Fei Duan easily kill himself? The big snake pill is a smart person. He can clearly grasp the so-called scale, ensure that the flying segment will not kill him, and at the same time satisfy his curiosity. For the curiosity of the big snake pill, Fei Duan shook his head indifferently and explained, don't be a god. The existence of what is called the strongest illusion is that it rewrites Tuanzang's mind and makes him unaware. Hiss, the big snake pill gasped. This kind of terrifying illusion he had never heard of, and his steps couldn't help but step bigger, as if he wanted to stay away from the flying section. Don't be so nervous, don't be able to use it once in decades, Fei Duan explained without care, not at all afraid that the big snake pill would learn these secrets. This ability derived from the kaleidoscope. Even if the big snake pill knew it, there was no way to target or crack it. So that's the case. The big snake pill's mood finally calmed down a lot. If there were no restrictions on such a heaven-defying ability, I am afraid that this world would have been out of order long ago. Lord Orochimaru, you're back. Have you succeeded? As soon as Fei Duan and the big snake pill entered the research room of the big snake pill, a voice came out, and a young man with round-framed glasses walked out from inside. Medicine man pocket. Fei Duan looked at the young man who appeared in front of him. He was worthy of being a natural spy. He looked like a scholar with no chicken power, but his beautiful face could make people feel an inexplicable sense of trust. Sorry, he failed, Fei Duan said to Pocket playfully. This guy is worthy of being the henchman of the big snake pill, and such a confidential laboratory can enter and exit at will. Lord Orochimaru? Looking at the silver-haired boy in front of him vigilantly, he felt a trace of chill from the harmless face of the flying section, and subconsciously included the flying segment in the super dangerous character sequence. Go down, I'm fine. Orochimaru waved his hand. He didn't want to let him know in front of him that he had failed miserably in the hands of Fei Duan. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. Walking out respectfully, for him, Lord Orochimaru's order was above all else. Even if he was allowed to die, he would gladly carry it out. I have to say that the big snake pill still has a certain personality charm, otherwise he would not have so many subordinates. These are the cells of the first and second Hokage. The big snake pill took out 2 test tubes, which contained a small amount of blood, and handed them to Fei Duan. The eternal kaleidoscope carefully stared at the test tube in front of him, analyzing the attributes of chakra in the cell, and after determining that this was indeed the cell of the first Hokage and the second Hokage, the flying segment transferred it to the blood sea space and preserved it. Orochimaru looked at the spatial ability used by the flying segment, and his eyes were hot again, and his desire for the Sharingan increased again. Fei Duan naturally noticed the greedy gaze of the big snake pill, but this will make him not care, get what he wants. He is still in a good mood, and the capital it itself uses to cooperate with the big snake pill is a body, Uchiha's body, Sasuke's body. So, let's talk about cooperation. An imperceptible longing flashed in Fei Duan's eyes, and he said calmly, I want to hear about it. Orochimaru stood respectfully on the side, and he also wanted to know what exactly Fei Duan wanted to cooperate with him. Tell me the news of Lonely Cave, and from now on, you will continue to study the transplantation of primary cells, and in the future, I will let you do me a favor. Fei Duan said his purpose. For the big snake pill, Fei Duan is very clear. This guy is very interested in all forbidden arts and everything, which also causes him to not concentrate on studying one thing all the time. The big snake pill directly wanted to refuse Fei Duan's request, and the first request he could agree, but Fei Duan actually wanted to restrict his research, which made the big snake pill unacceptable. Without waiting for Orochimaru to speak, Fei Duan threw out his chips. After the matter is done, Sasuke's body is yours. Orochimaru's pupils shrank sharply, not expecting that Hidan would actually use Sasuke as a bargaining chip to make a deal with himself. But how can I trust you as a man of his kind? The big snake pill is a little dry mouth, but what Fei Duan said is too unbelievable. It's very simple. Your Konoha destruction plan, I will not interfere, and let you leave a spell mark on Sasuke's body. This answer, are you satisfied? Fei Duan's cold voice made the cold-blooded guy of the big snake pill feel a trace of coldness. At that moment, his heart even stopped beating. What kind of person is this guy? Not only knows his secrets, but even his plan of action is clear. This unknown feeling makes Orochimaru a little crazy, and at the same time lists Fei Duan as the most terrifying and feared person in his heart, and even Uchiha Itachi is ranked second by him. I promised, the big snake pill said helplessly, feeling so powerless for the first time. The corner of Fei Duan's mouth evoked a smile, This is the power brought by strength. If you have the strength in this world, you can do whatever you want. The big snake pill took out a scroll from the shadows and handed it to Fei Duan. This records the location of the Dragon Earth Cave, one of the 3 major immortal lands. Reaching out and taking the scroll, Fei Duan's heart secretly had a plan. The immortal art of Lonely Cave was also something that Fei Duan was seeking, but he was not going to learn. But happy cooperation, Fei Duan said with satisfaction, and then seemed to remember something, and said to the big snake pill again, the old man of ape flying sun chopping has some kindness to me, so you can't kill him, the rest, you just watch and do it. After speaking, the figure of the flying segment disappeared into the spatial vortex. The big snake pill stood quietly in the dark research room, his eyes constantly flashing with strange light. Episode 73. Inside the office of the 3 generations of Hokage. Fei Duan, this time the Zonin exam is very important, and there must be no trouble. So I hope you can act as the proctor of this exam, Ape Fei Ri said to the Fei Duan in front of him with a serious face. And Fei Duan was lying on Xiao Nan's shoulder with a look of indifference, a bored look, which made Ape Fei Ri chop look a little itchy. Did this guy listen to himself carefully? This is the 5th day after Hidan reached a consensus with Orochimaru, and he has just been summoned by the 3rd generation of Hokage to come here, and at the same time, he also learned from the mouth of Sarutobi Hinata that just tomorrow, the Naka Shinobi exam will begin. Hey! Can't you give the old man me a little face? Ape Fei replayed the warmth card, and even said things like calling himself an old man. This guy who is not old has never served an old man. Since the 3 generations of adults have asked in such a low voice, wouldn't it seem that I am a little too much if I don't agree again? In this case, I will reluctantly agree. Fei Duan looked very unhappy, seeing that the Ape Fei Ri wanted to hit someone. Ape Fei Ri chop calmed down with great difficulty, and then said to Fei Duan seriously, do you think these freshmen of ours can participate in this Zonin exam? He asked the question he was most worried about. After all, these people are the backbone of Konoha's new generation, and they must not lose anything, although it is strictly forbidden to kill people in the exam, but they are afraid of that. I don't think they have any problems. With me as the proctor, there will definitely be no accidents. Fei Duan said confidently, but secretly added in his heart, except Sasuke. Since you have said so, let them also take this Zonin exam. Ape Flying Sun Chopper has paid attention, obviously still trusting the strength of the flying section. So if nothing happens, I leave? Fei Duan greeted the 3 generations of old men and was about to slip away, but he was worried about today's shame game with his little maid. Well, you go first, I still have to be busy here for a while. Ape Fei Ri nodded, and Fei Duan could leave. And when Fei Duan heard the 3 generations of old men say this, he immediately replied, old man, let's look at less of that, see what you have become in the past 2 years, and your face is yellow and thin. After that, Fei Duan decisively used divine power to open up. He didn't want to stay and listen to the old man's roaring voice. Sure enough, as soon as Fei Duan slipped away, Ape Flying Sun Chopper scolded, this disrespectful old guy can always stir up the fire in Ape Fei Ri Chopper's heart, so that he is now a little afraid to see Fei Duan. Ape Fei Ri couldn't help but miss the past. When he first saw Fei Duan, what a simple and pure boy he was. How did he become like this now? He really shouldn't have let him into the dark department in the first place. Ape Flying Sun Chopper is still sighing that Fei Duan must have been in the dark department for 3 years to become like this. Where did he know that Fei Duan is only releasing his nature now? At first it looked simple and simple. It was completely because he had just entered this world not long ago, and he was not very adaptable. Fei Duan was walking on the way home, patted his head, and suddenly thought of a very serious problem. Hinata's little loli can now be said to be a cute little cute with completely zero combat effectiveness and judgment ability. Fei Duan has persistently cultivated Hinata in the direction of a lady for a period of time, so what does a lady want to fight? Xiaonan, what should I do now? Hinata Yatu has no combat power at all, and going to participate in the Zonin exam is completely a food delivery. Fei Duan said with some chagrin, he now has nothing to hand over to Hinata for self-preservation, which is very embarrassing. Huh? A question mark popped up cutely on Conan's head. Is Hinata going to take the Chunin exam? Flying segment. Are you sure you didn't doze off in the office of 3 generations of old men? This little maid seems to be getting more and more cute now. Bang! Fei Duan decisively knocked lightly on Xiaonan's head, and said angrily, what did you listen to? The 3rd generation of old men just talked about the Zonin exam in the office. Xiaonan looked at Fei Duan aggrievedly, and said with a red face, it's not a stinky master, yesterday. The more he said, Xiaonan's face became crimson. He was embarrassed to say it. Forehead cough. Fei Duan coughed lightly, only to remember that it seemed that he had played with Xiaonan for a whole night yesterday, and it was not easy to toss her. No wonder Xiaonan was sleepy during the day. However, as a master, there is naturally no mistake, Fei Duan said solemnly, as a qualified maid, you must be able to withstand the exercise. It is only 1 night. It seems that the degree of exercise is not enough. Xiaonan looked at Fei Duan's serious nonsense with a crimson face, and thought to himself, this stinky owner is really getting worse and worse. However, Xiaonan felt extremely sweet about Fei Duan's covetousness for him, snuggled in Fei Duan's arms, did not say a word, and enjoyed the warmth brought by Fei Duan's embrace. The next moment, Xiaonan seemed to have thought of some idea, lying on Fei Duan's ear and said stickily, "Master, I have a way, I don't know if it will work or not." "Let's hear it." Fei Duan was a little interested, and this little maid didn't know what kind of method she would come up with. "Master, you can do this," Xiaonan whispered in Fei Duan's ear, exhaling like a lawn, and the warm breath not only made Fei Duan start to feel ape. Xiaonan's method also made Fei Duan's eyes brighter and brighter, and finally excitedly held Xiaonan in his arms, and came to a French long kiss, until after kissing Xiaonan red, the two disappeared in place and appeared on the high tower of the Blood Sea space. A big bed has long been placed here by the flying section. As for the roll, as the clothes of the two were thrown, after a short run in, the tower heard a pop syllable popping, and Xiaonan's enthusiastic response. Time passed quietly in the intimacy of the two, and the entire Blood Sea space was echoed by the voice of the two people's love and love. Episode 74. Early the next morning, Fei Duan and Xiaonan came to the place where the 8th class usually gathered for training, and the members of the 8th class also gathered here early. They all received news from their families. Just today, the Zonin exam is about to begin, and they will also participate in this Zonin exam. Yo! Everyone came early. Fei Duan and Xiaonan walked over, greeted them, saw the sunset red on the side. Fei Duan's eyes lit up, immediately walked over, put on the red ears, and said softly, "Teacher Hong, you also came so early." Sunset Hong's face turned red, and he took a step to the side. The three students were still watching in front of him. This guy was too unscrupulous. Fly teacher Fei Duan also came quite early. Hong responded shyly, and then stood aside a little embarrassed and didn't speak. She was afraid that Fei Duan would really take advantage of herself in front of the students, which would be too humiliating. Teacher early. Teacher early. Brother Fei Duan early. Sister Xiaonan early. The three students also greeted politely, especially Hinata. Since Fei Duan appeared, the whole person's eyes were all focused on Fei Duan. Up to now, Hinata little lowly has completely become a qualified little lady, with quiet manners, well-behaved and cute clothes, coupled with her shy talent. Fei Duan is full of a sense of achievement for her cultivation plan. Where can Hinata still see the appearance of a ninja now? He is a little princess in a fairy tale, and he doesn't know what kind of attitude his father Hinata Hayashi has now, but he actually let it go. At least Hinata has never seen Hinata Hayashi come to trouble him. "I came here today before the Chunin exam to illustrate one thing." Fei Duan's face became serious. To be a teacher you must have the majesty of a teacher, although Fei Duan himself is not a serious teacher. Oil girl Shino and Inuzuka looked at Hidan suspiciously. It's all this time, what else to explain, this irresponsible teacher. If it weren't for Sunset Red being responsible for teaching them, I'm afraid they would all have to be self-taught. For this irresponsible teacher, they really don't have a little temper. They can't beat, and the people in the clan also let them not provoke this guy, and even let them try their best to make friends with Fei Duan, and with this teacher-student friendship, they can get closer to Fei Duan. Now their three-person squad can almost be called the composition of Shino the oil girl, Inuzuka and Akamaru. As for Hinata, she is pulled by Hida every day to go shopping, eating, drinking, and having fun. Can you still count on her to come on the field to help fight? Both of them are worried about whether Hinata will still throw shuriken now. Ahem, Fei Duan also saw the dissatisfaction of the 2-in-1 dog, but this matter was indeed something he did not do. Since he used the monthly reading to give them an entry assessment, he has been ignoring them. Fortunately, with the deputy teacher of Hong, they can grow. Since it did not play the meaning of the teacher's teaching before, then this time I will take them to fly. Fei Duan thought silently in his heart. After pondering for a while, Fei Duan spoke. Hinata will not participate in this Zonin exam. Shino the oil girl, I know. Inuzuka at #yen%. Akamaru, woof, what a weird teacher this is. Hinata? Sunset Red, is that really good? Ahem, Fei Duan saw that they all fell silent, and coughed twice again. Although Hinata will not participate, I will personally participate in this exam instead of Hinata, and I am also the proctor of this exam, and I am solely responsible for the exam. In addition to shock, they really didn't know what to say, except for Hinata Xiaonan. The rest of the people had a thought in their hearts. I have never seen such a brazen teacher. As a member of a large family, they learned about the flying segment from their own family, and he was comparable to a guy with shadow-level combat power. The information was not complete, but they could not have imagined that the flying segment actually came to play such a play. In your capacity, coming to the Chunin exam, are you sure that those opponents will not collapse? What's the difference between this and the family? Ahem, don't look at me with this kind of eyes. After all, you teachers and I are not even shinobi. It's not too much to take the Zonin exam. Fei Duan said shyly. The three people and a dog gave a disdainful look. Since this guy came to Konoha, he has not even brought a forehead guard, and he has indeed not participated in the ninja assessment, and he really does not even have the identity of a subordinate ninja. But what level are you? Can you have no electricity B number in your heart? They can already imagine that those other candidates were tossed to death by the flying section, and the deep impression left on them by the reading of the day and moon of the flying section is still fresh in their memory, which is really too exciting. This is Xiaonan's idea for Fei Duan. Since Hinata has no combat ability now, then it is not enough for Fei Duan to personally go into battle. Anyway, this Zonin exam will also be chaotic. Fei Duan naturally does not mind joining in to have fun and pass the boring time. So it was decided, I have already registered for the place of the 8th class, and I will participate in place of Hinata. The flying segment clapped nailed. The two of them and a dog had to nod helplessly. This guy decided, how can they have the qualifications to oppose? As for Hinata, she looks well behaved, and she doesn't have any grievances about her inability to take the Zonin exam, because now she has a deep lady's way of flying Duan. As a lady, how can she fight and kill? As a lady, naturally she has to listen to brother Fei Duan. Sunset Hong held his head and silently prayed for the little guys who took the Zonin exam, hoping that they would not run into the pervert of Fei Duan. Let's go. Let's go take the Chu Shinobi exam. Fei Duan said in high spirits. He was very interested in the Zonin exam. Bullying children and so on was not too fun. Yes, Shino the oil girl responded weakly with Inazukaya, and Akamaru hummed on the top of Inazukaya's head, helplessly following Hida to participate in the first test of the Chunin exam. Episode 75. The news that Fei Duan was going to participate in the Zonin exam, not only did he not hide it, but took the initiative to tell the 3 generations of old men and others. After all, he wanted to take the exam instead of Hinata and help her get the qualification for Zonin. Although Hinata little lowly is now cultivated as a lady by herself, Fei Duan still wants her to have the title of enduring. After all, it is the little lowly who she cultivated by herself, and she can't be looked down upon, right? Hai Duan is right to think so, but the 3 generations of Hokage and the other invigilators are fried, and Hai Duan is going to take the Naka Shinobi exam. This news is like a thunderbolt on a sunny day, thundering them not lightly. How can this unorthodox guy be so able to make trouble? Although shocked, they couldn't do anything about the flying section. First, who could control the flying section? Second, I didn't see that the 3 generations of Hokage didn't speak. In fact, where the ape flying sun chop does not want to say, but knows that what he said is useless, Fei Duan's nature, he can be regarded as somewhat understood. That is a typical thing. What made him most helpless was that this morning, Fei Duan also ran to his office with a serious face and said to himself, in order to be able to better monitor, I decided to join the team of students, so that I can prevent any accidents from the perspective of students. Sarutobi Sunchop, what else can I say? You've gagged me with proctoring, what else can I do? In this way, Fei Duan smoothly mixed into the 8th class, put on his Tengu mask, and became a mysterious character in the candidates. Shino the oil girl, Yaya Inazuka, and Akamaru, helplessly followed behind Hijuan, entered the examination room, sat in their place, and took the exam with their teacher. There is nothing more painful than this. After a few moments, all the candidates were already in place. Fei Duan looked at the candidates around. Most of them were Dragon Set examinees who came to play soy sauce. The real main force was still Orochimaru's subordinates and the candidates of San Shinobu Village and Konoha Village. According to Fei Duan's memory, the first exam would kill many people, just because that examiner was Mori Naibiki. Sure enough, not long after, a middle-aged man with 2 huge scars on his face walked out, with a cold face and a tall figure, revealing a temperament that would rather not bend. Mori Naibiki, the head of the Dark Interrogation, can also be regarded as an old friend of the flying section. However, the moment after entering the examination room, this guy who was not alarmed suddenly changed his painting style. His eyes directly turned into 2 white balls, his mouth was square and wide open, and his face was full of disbelief. Mori Hibiki couldn't believe it. Looking at one of the candidates' seats, the guy with a Tengu mask, silver hair, and a strong body, actually appeared on the candidate's seat. This is a ruthless character that everyone in the entire dark part knows, and a Tengu mask and a scarlet march sickle are his symbols, as well as the symbol of death. Few people know what kind of face is under that mask, and some people even rumor that under that mask, it is not a person at all, but a skeleton in human skin, the spokesperson of death. The examinees looked at the examiner who came in with a surprised face. His shocked expression was really funny, and the first impression of the iron-blooded real man who was originally Moriabiki was instantly destroyed, leaving a speechless funny image. Few people know what kind of face is under that mask, and some people even rumor that under that mask, it is not a person at all, but a skeleton in human skin, the spokesperson of death. The examinees looked at the examiner who came in with a surprised face. His shocked expression was really funny, and the first impression of the iron-blooded real man who was originally Moriabiki was instantly destroyed, leaving a speechless funny image. Some even smiled disdainfully, thinking that Konoha's ninja was just that. Fei Duan sneered in his heart. It was normal for Morihabiki to be surprised here. After all, he came to be the main examiner of the first exam temporarily, and he was not a fool in the dark department for so many years, and it was normal to have a little reputation. The exam begins. Distribute quiz papers. Mori Hibiki also seemed to see the strange appearance of the candidates, and after briefly explaining the cruel rules of the exam, he started the exam directly. And almost all the candidates can no longer laugh after learning the strict exam rules, especially after holding the test paper in their hands. They have an expression of eating a dead child. They all have a resonance in their hearts. Is this really a test paper for people? Only a few people figured out the real purpose of this exam rule, that is, intelligence gathering, stealing other people's answers without being disqualified, which is the real purpose of the first exam. As a result, all the candidates began to show their own talents: Sasuke's Sharingan, my Era's Sand-Eye, Everyday's Mirror. Every candidate did their best, but there were still people who were constantly cleared out of the field, and even removed by Mori Hibiki by force. Fei Duan looked at the test paper in his hand speechlessly, and there were 10,000 MMPs in his heart who wanted to say it. What a barren thing. Originally, Hidan was a halfway monk, and his understanding of these so-called ninja basics was pitiful. What makes Fei Duan most angry is that the second question is a special shuriken that also makes you ask for a parabola or something. Is the boss studying mathematics? I can't bear it. Is this bullying myself, who has not learned mathematics well since I was a child? The flying segment decided that I couldn't bear it. This is simply making it difficult for me to fly the segment. Fei Duan stood up in the eyes of everyone's surprise, and when everyone thought that Fei Duan was going to abstain, Fei Duan took the test paper in his hand and walked in front of Moriabiki. Finish this for me. Wrong question. Hee. Fei Duan sneered, looked at the confused Moriabiki in front of him, directly stuffed the exam paper into his hand, and then reflexively returned to his seat, playing leisurely. Full test taker, and this kind of operation? What surprised them even more was that Moriabiki really honestly helped the flying section fill in the answers, which instantly made the mentality of this group of candidates explode instantly. Isn't such an upright and bright cheating method a little excessive? You don't think of us as people,